town you never heard of. Hey everybody, welcome to the Common Folk Podcast with Ben, Morgan, and Andy.
Welcome back to Common Folk
Podcast for the people, by the people.
There it is. There it is. We haven't talked about that song, that intro. I just heard it the other day on the radio.
What do you want to talk about?
Well, Eric Burkett. I was just saying the song, the intro song.
It is a good one.
It's a real song.
I was going to ask if that was like a song you had made for the podcast, or
A lot of people say that. That's actually his. It's an original song of his. That
Yeah.
He wrote in conjunction with another guy, but it just fits so well. Mm-hmm. So when we were starting the podcast, we were trying to find music because
He gave us 4 or 5 songs to pick through, and so I'd listen to them, and then there was that one line in there. I'm like, oh man,
Yeah.
that's like as you're driving out here, you just picture
it's
it.
perfect. Yeah.
that's the one.
I had downloaded a bunch of like just random
Jingles or
instrumental
whatever. Yeah.
stuff like with no voices, and I was like, it sounds kind of cool, whatever, but it's kind of gimmicky. And then I had messaged Burgett, and I was like, dude, do you think you got something that would work? And he's like, yeah, I got some things. And then he did the recording where he says, where he introduces us, and we're like, it's perfect, man. And you chopped it up a little bit and got it all fit in there. And
Sometimes that's the bitch of it, is finding. I mean, I deal with that all the time, trying to find music that works for like videos and stuff.
Yeah.
It can be the biggest pain in the ass. I've spent days before like going through songs and be like, nope, that's not it. Nope, that one ain't it either.
And not
it's
only
hard
that,
to do.
then you have to figure out like all the legal side of it too,
Is there
right?
a copyright? what do you have to do? Just say this, you don't own it? Like, is that the thing?
So for professional videos that I'm like making for clients and selling to them, you have to use like royalty-free music. And there's a handful of websites that you can use, like MusicBed and Artlist and stuff like that.
Oh, okay.
Where you can find really like, there's songs that I've found on these royalty-free sites that I'm like,
They're awesome.
that's actually a really
good.
good
Yeah,
song.
they're really
Like
good
I was
songs.
not expecting that, because like when I started out, I started using some other sites that were royalty-free music that were cheaper, and you would go through the music and you're like, this is the worst shit I've ever heard in my life. Like there's no way I can
Like my
use
kid
this.
made it?
Yeah, there's stuff that I've found on MusicBed that I then found on Spotify and like listen to it, like actually listen to it. So, but the nice thing is with like the TikTok and Instagram Reels world is that you can put any music you want to on those, and there's no like copyright strike to them at all. That's actually how a lot of artists are getting discovered these days, is because somebody put it on a trending video of theirs and then it blew up. That's really
So,
common.
When you say you can put any one that you want on there, do you have like a library to pick from? So it's anyone you want out of that library, or can you literally put
Anything
whatever?
you want. Like think of some of your favorite songs.
I mean, I would
You
think
can put
about
them on
like
there.
one of my favorite artists, Tay Tay, would not be down with that.
Yeah.
I mean,
You don't
she's,
think she'd like that? You
she's
might get a
gotta
phone call.
I mean, she's got to be like, no.
Not gonna
That's
do
your
it.
not.
favorite artist.
Yeah.
Oh, dude, I jammed to Tay Tay when I'm by myself in the truck.
Such a lie.
I do have a question.
I was so shocked when you just said
I did. I was too. Like at first when you said it, I'm like, who is he referring to? And I was like, Jesus Christ, Taylor Swift. I'm like,
You said it so serious.
yeah,
Oh
you
my
were like,
God.
dead serious. Like,
I'm
look at me
serious.
in the eye when you
That's
said
like
it.
I'm serious.
That's like an Alan Jackson nickname I don't know or something.
Yeah.
Yeah,
right,
it's like Tay.
I don't know why you guys are
Is this a
getting all
rapper?
weird about it.
She's probably the only one that'll make you pay. But other than that,
Yeah, she ain't down with that.
No, she ain't.
Well,
But I'm
who's-
part of her crew, so it's all
Okay, yeah, you're in the clique.
who's this
Makes
guy
sense.
I'm a
that's
Swiftie.
talking though?
I'm a Swiftie.
We got to
Right.
introduce this man across the table.
Yeah, man, we got Corey. We got Corey Jones back.
Back.
He's the
Am I the
OG.
first common folk
Yeah.
repeat offender?
That's a good way to put that. I like that.
Yeah, not
Is it-
not
did we
repeat.
have
We had
We've
Jeff
had the
Molnick's back.
historian.
Jeff? Oh yeah, we did. Yeah, he did a
He
couple.
came back.
Yep.
And then our historian guy, the museum dude down in Nebraska City. I ran into him in Waverly after a baseball game. He was at a totally fit the bill vintage tractor show.
Of course he was.
I think we had
course.
Doug. We had Doug on a couple too, didn't we? Vodka.
Yeah. Cooper Chase.
Cooper Chase. Yeah.
Yep.
He was on a couple.
But you hold the spot because you were the first podcast.
Well, your
right?
Episode one.
First episode 1.
Was it the first episode?
Yes.
So,
I think
We
it was
recorded
the
and you were
first
like-
one you released, wasn't it? Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You were
And-
our first guest ever.
And I think first video on the YouTube channel.
And
So-
what I was going to say is it was literally one of the most listened to.
Oh, yeah.
One of the most downloaded. Yeah.
All on accident.
No.
Hey, you know what? Sometimes accidents happen and
Yeah.
they're good.
So you're
Happy little
back.
accident.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's over 2 years ago then.
2 years? I thought it was last year.
We're
Or am I
yeah.
making that up?
No. We've
'Cause
been doing this.
No, we have, but it was after the beginning. But either way, let's see here. Let's see, it's February 17th of 22.
So there
Like
we go.
I said,
Jeez,
over
I thought
2
it was
years.
like
Yeah.
February
No.
or March of last year.
No.
Yeah.
We got a lot to
Time
catch
flies.
up on.
I'm
Yeah.
sneaking
Been a
up
while,
on people.
dude. Been a while.
Yeah.
So if people literally go back, if they want to listen to all of the beginning of this, because we talked about, your upbringing, how you got to a point where you wanted to start a business, all the different things that you're doing. We went through all of that stuff back then, so it would be worth it to folks to go back. You can literally scroll all the way back because it is the first one.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you had a good, you're moving gravel. That business was working.
Oh
for
yeah,
you.
you're running a truck. You're doing.
Yeah.
You're doing all
Oh,
kinds of
yeah.
things.
Your
truck,
Yeah,
too.
we talked
Yeah.
about all that.
Yeah, because this would be, if I can get my time right here, this would be the 4th year of me doing videography full time.
Right now is.
Oh, 4
Yeah.
years.
Yeah.
Okay.
So at that point, it was.
That was a little new then.
It was 2 years ago. It was
Yeah.
a little over 2 years ago.
I
so-
was just kind of, when we did the podcast, I was just kind of getting out of the, oh shit, first year stage of doing this
Yeah.
business, and
It
kind of
was,
things
yep.
were like working out really well, which they have been the whole time, but that was kind of getting warmed up, and now, year 4 already, which is kind of crazy.
Yeah, so we thought, man, let's bring Corey back. Like this was one of the original ones that we chatted about, and small business, and you had already done, a number of entrepreneurial ventures and trying to figure out what you wanted to do, and then kind of found your niche and something that you really liked, had a big passion about, and was doing that. So we talked about that, and it was going well. And I thought, man, this would be a cool opportunity. So here we are over 2 years later to follow up. Hey, what's been happening? I mean, most small businesses, there's some numbers. Andy, I don't know, you guys might know the numbers, but there's some numbers where like within the first couple of years, it's like 80%
Yeah.
of small businesses fall off.
What?
Oh.
That high?
I think it's at least 80. Like
Yeah.
most,
Oh,
like
shit.
in the first year, most people,
It-
I shouldn't say people, but most business ventures just fall off.
Yeah.
Do you think that's
After.
because though people just don't have the grit, or do you think it's like financial? It's
Oh.
probably all the above.
I think there's a lot of luck involved too. I really do.
Okay.
If you're so determined you're going to stick through it, you can stick with the failing business. But I think a lot of people are like, all right, I've had enough. I got to get back.
Yeah,
to
and
a job.
I think it's a lot of people, like, it's a mindset that I had too when I first started, like, the trucking business. It was like, I think a lot of people, maybe, I was 22 or 23 when I started that business, so I can comfortably say I was naive and thinking that, like, have my own business, I can do whatever I want whenever I want.
Right,
Like, I can go
right.
on a week vacation
Yep.
every month if I want to, and it's just, and I think a lot of people kind of have that in their mind
Yeah.
when they go into it, and you quickly find out that that's not at all. That's
You're actually
not
working
even
more.
close.
That is a
to-
22-year-old thought. I'll drive truck 3 weeks every month, but 1 week I'm going to Jamaica.
Yeah, you have-
1 week every month.
you have the world's best ideas before a business,
Yeah, right.
and then it all goes to shit.
And it does. I mean, I feel like that's a lot of the story that gets fed is like, hey, make your own schedule, do whatever you want, have flexibility.
Yeah, how's that? Oh, geez, how's that saying go? I started my own business to go from 40 hours a week to 24 hours a day.
Yeah. Yeah.
Where it's like
Yeah.
you're working all the time.
Right.
If you're going to make it work. But that's why, we kind of touched on it last time, that you have to make sure before you start a business, make sure you're actually wanting to do that all the time. And you're actually, I guess, not necessarily that you have to be passionate about it, but I mean, make sure you can stand doing it,
Yeah,
because
100%.
I didn't mind sitting in a truck when I started my trucking business, but eventually sitting in one for 14 hours a day,
Just got old.
it's like, oh my God, I literally cannot do this anymore.
Yep.
You can stand that trucker tan on your left arm, and then your white arm be all
Yeah, trucker tan. It is. It's a real thing,
I know
though,
it
too.
is.
I mean,
I know it is.
When I've
You
been
see-
trucking, I've caught myself being like, oh no, my left arm's red.
Oh, I love it when you stroll into a good old honky tonk and you see one guy with just a real dark left arm, just white as all get out right arm. Yeah, I know what you got going on.
So I think to that point, like you asked Morgan, why do so many businesses not make it past a couple of years? It is that, like, you find out, you get into it, you find out, like, oh, shoot, this might not be for me. As far as the actual job itself, you also find out the amount of commitment that it takes. And all that being said, there are obviously a lot of perks to it. That you call it flexibility. It is flexibility because you do kind of make your own schedule, but you also don't. But you have opportunities to do things that a lot of other folks don't. And you just decide, which one's more important for you, as far as where you're at in your life.
Well, and I think a lot of it too is that I'm able to let like financial stress just kind of roll off my back. I think a lot of people
It's tough.
wake up at 2 a.m.
Yeah.
going,
Yep.
God,
Yeah.
what's going to happen? Because with a lot of businesses, you might not know exactly what next month looks like. I've been doing this 4 years. I can't tell you exactly what July is going to look like. I don't even know yet.
And I envy that as a small business owner, because when I started and we were doing all this, there was a guy that was doing podcasting that I had hooked up with. He was a marketing guy. We did a bunch of stuff. Andy, you knew him.
Yeah, I think so.
Scott Pavick, and he's still doing stuff.
Oh, yeah.
And we did some interviews, and I don't know why, but I'll never forget this. We did a podcast interview here in the garage, out here in the driveway. We just sat there and just open mic, just was chatting about
Just
stuff.
you and him?
Yep.
Huh.
And he asked me, what keeps you up at night? And at that time, I was that early business owner. And I was like, don't really know what you're talking about, man. Like, nothing really keeps me up at night. I sleep good. I wake up. I can't wait to get on things, get stuff rolling, blah, blah, blah. Now, today, the stuff that you're talking about, that is what keeps me up tonight. And one of the things that he said to me after we talked about that, he was like, because he was a small business owner, he was like, for me, it's cash flow. It's trying to keep things moving, trying to keep stuff paid for. And I was like, yeah, I guess I could see that. I'm thinking about it, whatever. But I wasn't running into that at that moment. Now, today, we do.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, man, that planning and that cash flow, keeping the
Yeah.
business floating. Now we have employees. We didn't have employees then. All the things that are happening and making sure people get paid and all that kind of shit.
Ugh.
It does keep me up at night, man.
course.
I wake up
Yeah.
for whatever reason, and then I start thinking about that, and I'm like, God damn it, I can't go to sleep
Yeah.
for another half an hour. And then I just get out of my head. I start thinking about something stupid like playing soccer or some shit. I just imagine myself or whatever, and then I go back to sleep.
But how do you not think of that?
Well, I can't say that I don't think about it, because I do. So, like, if it's getting to a point where it's like a really, like, dry spell, I guess, I will start being like, oh, man.
Yeah,
I mean, because someone
but
listening to this.
I don't sit there and, like, I don't wake up in the middle of the night in a cold sweat worrying about it.
Okay, but someone listening to this could be like, oh, well, then someone's feeding him money. Or, oh, he's living the life. Like, he's got
Neither.
parents' money. Okay. So, you know what I mean? I'm just saying, like, putting it
Yeah.
out there. Like, it's just a.
Well, and also you.
No, because I just know that, like, I haven't been doing it forever, but it always works out. And as long as you keep hammering, keep moving, keep making the right steps, doing pre-planning for this, that, and the other thing, and just do what you have to do, whether you like it or not, it's going to come back around. It's
Yeah.
going to be fine.
that is something your mom always says.
It is, yeah.
And you've developed a little bit of a talent with it, especially in the editing side of it, where I think that was kind of your strong front to begin with, would you say?
Yeah.
Because anyone can hold the camera right, blah, blah, blah. But it's in that post-production, I think, that separates. And, I mean, your early on work, I was looking at that, I'm like, God damn, he spent some time editing there. I can tell that.
Yeah,
And there's always a demand for that.
I think
That's
you're-
never going to go away.
You're absolutely right. And I don't want to skip over that point that you were making, Corey, of like the amount of pre-work and the preparation that you put into it, that you just know, like, this is going to work.
Yeah.
you know, and then that gives you kind of that peace of mind, and then also just having that faith, you know, of like, hey, no matter what, man, we're gonna grind this out, and this is gonna happen. And it's tough, you know, when you get more and more things piled on you. Like I said, kids and employees and assets and vehicles and buildings and all the things, but also just having that mentality, that's a really strong piece of it, a big piece of it.
Let me throw this at you, Corey. I kind of view this as it's a type of mental toughness that no one talks about. And in fact, it's almost slighted, you know, like, oh, he's not taking his finances serious. Like, well, no, if you can just kind of let that roll off your back, you know, that to me, that's a way of just having a mental toughness, a state of mind that knowing, like you said, faith that it's going to work out, and you're not getting tripped up on these, you know, I don't want to call them little things, right? Paying the bills, you know, you know, getting payroll taken care of. But I kind of view it as a mental toughness that kind of gets viewed in another way. You know?
Sure. No, I can see that.
Yeah, and like I said, it's just kind of any time that I have had a little bit of stress about like finances and cash flow and everything, I always find myself a month later, sometimes even a week later, being like, oh, well, see, it did work out. This came through and made this happen, and I worked through this and made these phone calls I needed to make, did the work that was necessary, and it ended up working out. So
so I think people listening, you know, you could take the impression of like, oh, you know, you just have faith, you're just sitting back, you're like, it's going to be okay, everything's going to be okay. But that's like, yes, you have that mentality, but you're putting in the work.
You're grinding.
You know,
you're doing it.
It's not like you're just sitting back going, I hope the phone rings. Like, it's going to be okay.
Yeah, I'm not summoning all of this money and work and stuff like that.
Manifestation.
Like if I think it'll happen hard enough, it'll happen. It doesn't work like that. Like, you got to get your ass out there and do the work. And you know, and I think that could be part of like why some businesses fail too, is that they just find out that they just don't really want to do it.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then the money doesn't come through, and then it's like, oh shit, and then I still don't want to do it.
Yep.
Well, I'm gonna have to go apply for another job.
And I'll be honest, I mean, you know, those thoughts, I think any entrepreneur, you know, Andy, you can speak to this as well, come in where you're like, you know, shit's struggling, it's hard, it's whatever, you're having all these things, and you're just like, dude, if I could just go back to that 9 to 5, and I know what my paycheck's gonna be every week, and if I screwed something up, it's not really going to be that big of a deal. I'm still going to get paid the same money.
Sure.
I'm not going to get fired. You know, I'm going to have good or decent health insurance. You know, I'm going to have all these things, you know, and those thoughts come to your mind, and you're like, man, maybe I should just do that again. But then you come back to kind of the reality as an entrepreneur for yourself.
Sure.
And you're like, no, I'm not doing that. I can't be held down. I can't be told what to do all the time. I need the creative freedom. I need all these things to do what I want to do.
Yeah.
And then you get back on track.
Yeah, to the point of like going back. And there's nothing wrong with like if you try something and you find out you don't like it and it doesn't work out, there's nothing wrong with going back to a 9 to 5. And like I do, you know, still I another thing that might make people want to, maybe their business fails because they realize that when you had your 9 to 5, when you left at 5, you could leave the job. The job stays there.
Right.
Yeah.
And you're an entrepreneur and you have your own job and you have your own business or whatever. From the time you wake up to the time you go to sleep, it's there.
Yeah.
Like you can't just leave work at work. It doesn't work like that.
And you guys tackle that on a whole nother level. And we've talked about that, where if it's a family-run business, you know, you guys are in this together. You know, you have Joel out here helping every once in a while, like, it follows you home. It is home.
And then you have that dynamic with like, you know, you're like the husband and the wife, like we're doing the same kind of thing, and we're both hanging off the same ledge. You know what I mean? Going on day to day, and then I mean it introduces a whole nother dynamic for sure.
That was a great point. I do catch myself thinking about my first like corporate job, you know, and I could easily leave that at 5 o'clock. And paycheck was good, and it was all automated. You know, I just every 2 weeks, a nice little, you know, regardless of my performance or whatever.
Right.
You know? That was nice, and that's, you know, when you jump ship or whatever, that security is not always there. You know, but I think a lot of people are finding out that security is never really there anyway. You know, with the 9 to 5.
No,
you know,
not at all.
I feel like it is, but. Oh man, you
Yeah.
know, we've seen a lot of businesses collapse that we never thought would collapse
sure.
or go away.
For sure.
But
Yeah.
we're talking about all this, but if people haven't listened to the first podcast, what are you doing? Like, what is your business?
Well,
I mean,
and what,
I know
or what, so like,
it
so
shifted
what,
a little bit. But
yeah, what we're going to get into is what has happened today and what things have kind of morphed for you. But when we spoke over 2 years ago, you had a business that you started. You had come out of the trucking. You had decided you really loved this video production and all things, the cameras and the creativity and all that kind of stuff. And you started CJP, Corey Jones Productions, and it was going pretty good for you. You're doing a lot of really cool things. We're seeing it locally. There's a lot of stuff going out nationally. I mean, you're down at the College World Series. This is College World Series week right now. You know, you were down there doing that as CJP, doing all kinds of crazy
jumping
shit.
out of planes, scuba diving,
Yeah.
like you
And
name it.
snowmobiling.
Guys
Yeah.
doing everything.
And we were like, oh, this is awesome, man. This is a local boy doing his thing, figuring it out. And that all went well for you. And then I think we're gonna, time-wise, in this podcast, we're gonna fast forward, we're gonna rewind, we're gonna go back and forth on a bunch of things. But if we were to fast forward to today, part of what we're talking to you about today is that CJP has morphed into something different. And so maybe to Morgan's question,
Yeah.
what is that today?
So it's just, I ended up completely rebranding and remarketing myself away from Corey Jones Productions because, like we talked about last time, I did kind of fall ass backwards into the video production thing. It's something I started out doing for fun, and literally within the first video I ever made, I was getting asked to do professional videos. So I started, what was I going to call it? I was going to call it Corey Jones Productions. What else am I going to call
Right.
it? You know what I mean? I
Yep.
wasn't putting a lot of thought into the branding and stuff like that because I started doing it part-time. Like, yeah, you know, I sure as hell don't do weddings anymore, but back then I was like, yeah, I'll do your wedding, like $500.
Yeah.
You know, I'll do it. And just doing all kinds of mismatched stuff that I don't even do anymore. And then one thing that I wasn't doing back then is I wasn't marketing myself at all. I had so much stuff just coming to me that there was I didn't advertise. I never spent $1 on ads. I never did anything like that. And even back then when I did that, the like really hardcore promote yourself and your personal brand stuff hadn't really even started yet. That wasn't really even like it was a thing, but not like it is today.
Yeah.
So, and you know, I wanted to move into something and just completely start over fresh, do a lot of personal branding with it. Like, I'm the niche of Cake Video Company. Like, instead of being, you know, a lot of people do nightlife or they do weddings or whatever. Like, if you do personal brand, that's what grows the most these days. So I'm making myself more of the niche than anything else. And then on top of that, it's like I'm moving away a lot from what I was doing with CJP. CJP was a lot of events, nightlife, you know, concerts, clubs type stuff. And I don't have any desire to do any of that stuff anymore, at all. And moving more towards, like, I love making content where we're telling a story. There's substance to it. There's, you know, creating emotion and motivating people. That's the kind of stuff that I want to make.
I see.
I'm not super into just going to a concert or whatever and making a sweet collage of flashy, slap you in the face clips for 30 seconds, and then that's what I do. Like, I want there to be a lot of substance to what I'm doing now.
So it's like the difference is what you were saying, if I could kind of put that in different words, is kind of that just flashy, just like flash in the pan, kind of fun, like it happened and now it's over kind of thing, videos.
Yeah.
As opposed to something, like you said, that's telling a story that has some meaning behind it, that people might go back and watch a number of times because they realize it's almost like a book. Like they realize there's things in here that when I watched it the first time, I probably missed it. And
It's like a documentary, kind of, but a short documentary.
Yeah, like documentary style stuff, because I want to start making stuff like there's all kinds of videos that I have saved on YouTube or Instagram or Facebook that I go back and watch a lot because, like, it made me feel something watching it.
Yeah.
Like, that's the kind of stuff that I like to consume, so therefore that's the kind of stuff that I want to make.
Yep.
Like the flashy stuff, you watch it and you literally scroll and completely forget about it. It's like he's obviously like one of the biggest YouTubers ever, but like you watch a Mr. Beast photo or video, you don't go back to it. You know, you watch it and you're like, what the fuck did I just watch? It was just a bunch of flashy whoa and text and crazy stuff.
10 minutes.
And you just sit there like staring at it, and then like once it's over, you snap out of it and go on about your day.
What's interesting to me about that is, and it kind of plays into what you were talking about earlier with like what keeps you up at night and the money and the bills and all these kinds of things. Like obviously that formula that he has pays the bills.
Yeah,
Big
for
time.
sure.
Right.
For him, he's figured it out.
But you made that decision where you're like, okay, I mean, I obviously can see, so can all the rest of the world, that makes a lot of money, but that's not what I want to do.
Well, even Mr. Beast has transitioned. You know, he's digging wells in Africa, so I think he did 100 wells, so 100 communities
That's
could have
true,
water.
yeah.
So, like, even he's, like, made this progression, you know, and what really kills, I think, that short-form stuff is they do a lot of biohacking to up your retention rates. And it's, you know who's the worst at it is Cocomelon. Those guys are snakes. I'm not kidding you. I'm not kidding you. Cocomelon, if you're listening, hey, you go stick it. But they use all these different psychological cues that won't allow you to pull yourself away from the screen. And they're doing this to little toddlers. Like the fallout of how bad their attention span is going to be, like years down the road, like I don't even want to see it. You know, but it's bad. Like the way the camera's always moving, there's always flashy colors. It's a brighter color, like 4 times brighter than what is on a normal cartoon. Like there's a lot of things that go into it. And Mr. Beast, as far as adult content, he's at the tippy top of that, or he was anyway, as far as retention rate.
There's
that's why you don't feel anything afterwards, because it's over. You know, it's done.
Yeah, I mean, you can keep the retention rate very high, obviously, with the Mr. Beast formula. No clips over 3 seconds.
Yep, moving in, moving out.
Yep, move in, move out. Certain colors, complementary colors, keeps you more glued and all that. But a good story will keep you glued in more than anything, and that's kind of the way that I want to go with it. And really, social media is kind of going that way right now. Anyways, that kind of flashbang type content is kind of going away, and I'm really, really glad, because that was terrible. Everything sucked because somebody would come up with a new way to do it, and then everybody would copy that, and then everything. If you go swiping through, Instagram Reels or TikTok, you're watching the same video over and over and over from different creators that don't even know each other. Right. And it's like, Jesus, this sucks.
Yeah, even all the thumbnails look the same. The pictures.
It's like someone put a class out and they all took the online class and then they all.
Yep. Here's your assignment. Go do it.
Yep.
That's exactly what they do.
Probably.
I'm going to ask you an obvious question that I bet you've heard a million times already, and I bet you hate answering it.
Oh, no.
Okay. What's your middle name?
No. Was there any inspiration from one of my favorite bands from the 90s with your new name?
Oh, no. See, that's since I made... Since I came over and we made the shirts and stuff, and because I've never said anything to anybody about it, about changing the name and everything, like me posting that was like, even like my closest friends and family like seeing it, and everybody's been like, what does it mean? Like it's an acronym or something.
Well, first of all,
you're looking a little too heavy into it.
When those guys write a song, we're talking about Cake, the band.
Right. And, and if you guys are going to get into some details, we haven't actually clearly said that yet. So this is the name of your new video production company.
Well, he said it. He said
he did say it, but it was kind of in passing. Yeah. So Cake Video Company.
Yeah, Cake Video Company. So Cake, I came up with this. I did a stint in the hospital earlier this year, and I spent a lot of time doing just basically like obsessing and researching over like marketing and branding and seeing what works and why. And the name Cake kind of comes from that. I do one of the things that like with like regular clients that I do like a lot of social media work for and stuff, I want to make from pre-production to them posting it, I want to make it as easy for them as possible, because if you're hiring somebody to come make content for you, you don't want, and you don't know anything about creating it,
Yeah.
you don't want a headache of like the videographer being like, well, what do you want to
Questions.
do?
Yeah.
How you want to do this? You want to make it easy. So, making video a piece of cake is kind of where cake came from.
Oh man.
And then, so to go back to your like biohacking, they say that names for businesses or brands under 3 syllables clicks the best in people's heads.
Right.
Cake is 1 syllable. So,
And that
But if
band
you-
is phenomenal. And they tell stories. They are storytellers. Every
Yeah.
one of those songs is a
in
story.
every song, there's a story. But if you do think about it, like, cake, that's easy to remember. Corey Jones Productions, that's not sticking in your head.
Yeah.
So it's, if you wanted to sit down and think about it for a while, you could probably come up with a lot of big time brands and businesses that are names are like 1 to 2 syllables.
Yeah.
It's easy to
Yeah,
remember.
sure. Yeah, it makes sense. Totally makes sense. Yeah,
And I think it kind of sounds cool. I
it
don't know.
does sound cool. When you, like you said, when you tie it to that name, like your own personal name, it does just kind of feel like another kind of small town business, not like a big deal.
Yeah.
And a lot of businesses, people feel like they are a really big deal, but they're actually not. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, that's kind of like ours. Like, I mean, our business, like, people are like, oh my gosh, you guys, national footprint and all these kinds of things. And like,
Yeah.
yeah, it's cool, but it's me and my wife and a couple other people here and there down here running the business, doing our thing. Like, it's not some big, crazy freaking thing. Really not in my mind.
Yeah.
It's not. Some people might think it is. But the point is that you have to have that. You have to have that name. You have to have that story. You have to have those things behind it.
Yeah.
And then I guess in the end, it is a bigger deal than you probably feel like it is in your own mind. But
Yeah. Yeah, it's I mean, you're right that like Corey Jones Productions, like that, is that the small town guy that does the wedding videos? That's what that sounds like to me. And the reason why I chose that name in the beginning is because it was very obvious for one, and then I know people like to say that like use your name because it makes it feel more personal to the client or potential client. But screw that. I want to go.
I had a guy, again, I go back to early on when I started my business, our business, and I had a guy that told me some of those kinds of things. He was directing me that way, where he was like, this business has to be you. This has to be your name. It has to be, it has to have your identity, those kinds of things. And while I agreed with some of what he was saying, what I disagreed with was that this business, this name, Farm Focused or Cake or whatever, has to be its own entity. Like, it has to be able to work without me.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm driving it right now. I'm building it. But if I go away, it can't stop. It needs to be way bigger than I am.
Yeah, you sound like Dave Ramsey right now because he's like slowly phasing himself out of his own radio show.
Okay.
But he's already like laid the foundation. He's already got like 4 or 5, brands and personalities that he's handing it off to.
Yeah, but isn't it
you know.
called the Dave Ramsey Show? So he.
Yeah.
That's what it was.
So
That's what it was,
is he going to change that or?
Well, no, his daughter I think is going to be one of the main spokesmen now, and her last name's Ramsey.
Okay.
Yeah, so at that
Yeah, close
point,
enough.
yeah.
I guess close, but it
I
goes
think it's
back
called
to your
Ramsey
point.
Solutions,
Like,
I don't know.
I mean,
Yeah.
maybe he's doing that, but he used
Yeah.
his name, so yeah, it's different.
Yeah.
I guess there's reasons for everything. Like
There
using
is,
your name
yeah,
or
there
not,
is,
whatever.
but-
But I do
yeah.
like the name Cake. I
Yeah.
think it's good.
No, I
I
like.
think everyone's going to ask though, like, what is the story? So
He's
I do
going
think
the
that-
distance.
But again, that's another thing, is that you want people to ask that question,
Sure.
because it
Yeah.
starts conversations that wouldn't have been started otherwise.
and he's got a
Again,
short
Cake.
answer too. It's Cake. I make it easy. You work with me, it's Cake.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Boom.
100%. And everyone
I
talks
mean,
about
have
like
people
what's your
asked
what's
you
your
that?
what's your elevator pitch or whatever. Like people ask that all the time, and yes, people ask
People
me
have asked you.
weekly.
I have not. I don't
What-
think I've ever.
No, you've 100% been around. When
No,
people,
but
when
like
people
how
walk
you
up-
got the name, how
No,
you
no, no,
decided
no,
on the
no,
name.
that's not what I'm saying. When
Oh, okay.
people walk up and go, "What is Farm
No,
Focused?"
yes, of
right?
course. We
And that's
get
what
that.
Andy's saying. Is when people go, "What is Cake?" Right?
Well, let me tell you.
and that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, but
so
you
that's
gotta
what.
shoot it quick.
But that's what that's what the beauty is of a name, is that it creates those conversations. So when we create, on our side, when we create those hats and those shirts and those kinds of things, when people look at it, it makes them want to ask the person that's wearing it, "What is that?"
Yeah.
as opposed to just reading it and they know, and then they don't ask you the question, then nothing ever comes from it.
Right. Yeah.
Right. Like you could almost have cake on a hat and it, I'll say video company. Like it could be small.
Yeah.
Like and people be like, cake? What's that? Then you can say it. You know what I mean? I don't know.
Yeah. Whereas like with Corey Jones Productions, like there's no need to ask questions.
Exactly.
Right.
We know
no
what
mystery.
that we know what
Yeah.
that is.
That's what I'm saying.
Like, and there's no need to ask. And if somebody, I mean, this isn't why I did it or what I had in mind, but if somebody can come up and ask me, like, what is cake? And I can give them the elevator pitch, and then, you know,
It leads
could
to
potentially
something.
grab
Yeah.
business that way too, because maybe they own a business and they need
Exactly.
some social media marketing going on, and then boom, there you go.
And not only that, what is even more powerful is when you get folks that you've done work for or that are, you know, fans of what you do, and they're wearing that, and then someone comes and asks them what it is, and then they are your advocate, because at that point it for whatever reason it's going to feel so much more genuine and important coming from that person as opposed to coming from the owner, because of course the owner's going to say it's fucking great.
It's the best thing ever.
Yeah, these are all the things, you know.
True.
But then you have someone else that's wearing that hat or that shirt or whatever, and someone goes and asks them, and they're like, "Oh, dude, there's this guy that I know. This is what he does. This is why he calls it this." It's just like,
Yeah.
Let's go.
And it's not that I didn't have any of that going on before, because I did
Sure,
have a
yeah,
lot of
yeah.
like with Corey Jones Productions, like I was just first
Swamped.
couple of years was just like word of mouth, the
Yep.
whole thing.
yep.
You
No,
know?
and I think 100%. It's just a matter of people getting the motivation to ask the question, "What is that?" And that's what comes from, to your original point, the branding.
Yeah.
The design, the branding, the simplicity, but then the question, you know, that it leaves in your mind, like, what is that?
So can I ask, you said you were sick, which we know. Do you think that pushed you then to change some things and like bring a different perspective on?
100%. Like, I mean, what happened really, really sucked and it was awful, but it did. You know, we talked about last time with losing my mom and how it pushed me into doing, kind of doing my own thing. Not that I wasn't before, but like just really pushed me into do like it was a very like profound experience for myself. And this was no different. It was actually quite a bit more like,
Okay.
got to change this, that, and the other thing. Kind of just waking me up as to what's really important and what I need to do. Because I will say that like before that happened, I was not doing everything with my business like I should be. Like, yeah, I put in the work and all that, but could have been doing a lot better. And so,
Like looking back, you think you could have done something better or harder. But don't you think we all think that? Like, is that
Sure,
like
yeah.
of course, but now you're thinking you want to change this about you.
So let me interject real quick. So earlier I said we're gonna fast forward, we're gonna rewind, you know, because there's this timeline, right? So we talked about CJP back, you know, over 2 years ago when we had this conversation. Then we fast forwarded today about what you're doing with your business, and the whole point of me saying that is that we are going to rewind into what has motivated you
Oh, sorry, I jumped.
to make some changes and the things that you have going on. And I think you guys are bringing up some really good points there. So let's rewind just a little bit. So what happened and when?
oh, with like getting sick and all that stuff.
Well,
yeah.
do you
Because
wanna
this is-
talk
because
about
this
it?
is
No, we can talk
this
about
is
it.
an
It's fine.
important this is an important part of your story.
No, it definitely is. So it's kind of funny. I was thinking about it the other day. I think most people, like I turned 30 back in November. And I think most people, when they're closing in on 30, they might be kind of like, oh, geez, I'm going to be 30. Like they don't want to go out of their 20s. I was at the point where I was like, you know what? Like I'm done with the 20s. I'm done with the partying, the drama, the stupid shit, the getting in trouble, doing all that. Like I'm ready for my 30s. Like I think it's going to be awesome. I think it's going to be the best. Been a shit show ever since I turned 30. I turned 30 in November. December I was going down the highway, had a chick run a red light, T-boned her, totaled my car, and fast forward to a month from that, I ended up becoming really, really sick and ended up in the hospital.
So you're talking about, just so people can understand the timeline, you're talking about January of this year.
January of this year. Yep.
And currently we're in June. So
June.
here we are.
So this is pretty recent.
Yep.
And ended up finding out that I have Crohn's disease, which sucks. But I got really, really abnormally sick. Like, got told a couple times in the hospital, like, you're pretty much dancing on death's door right now. Like, you're close. So it was about a month in the hospital, which ended in 2 surgeries, one to remove my colon and the other one to like clean me out because I was septic and like had pretty much like infection all over the inside, like all the way up to like my lungs. And also in the process, was so sick, I ended up losing like 65 pounds.
I mean, and you're a tiny guy to begin with.
Yes.
He's not tiny.
I wouldn't say.
I mean, he's a tall dude, but he's
skinny.
He's thin.
Sorry,
Yeah.
not tiny.
Women just
Before
throw,
I got,
women
Is
just
that
throw
a
that
bad
out there, don't
I
they?
know.
Oh
You know,
my gosh.
your hands are so cute. You got
You're
the smallest
tiny.
hands.
I'm sorry. Women want to be tiny.
You were-
I shouldn't say that.
let's,
You're
like-
skinny.
yes, I was very petite.
Let's talk.
You guys.
Oh, yeah.
Let's
I
put
didn't
a.
know that was a dog for a guy.
Of course, it's a. You're
I'm
not.
not
We want to
saying-
be big and manly.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
okay, so what did you weigh before?
So that's what I was about to ask. So you're
165?
probably you're pushing 6 foot. How tall are you?
So
Just so people can get a video or a picture here, because Morgan said you're tiny. So
just six. Yeah, I'm 5'1", 100 pounds. No, I was 5'11", and normally walk around about 175 pounds.
Yeah.
Okay,
So
Pretty-
that's not tiny. Okay, but he's
Before-
skinny. He's not a
Okay.
big dude.
So then, like you said,
Like fat.
you lost like 60 pounds.
yeah, so before I went into the hospital, I think at that point I had probably already had the disease for several months. They don't know how long I may have had it, but I think it was probably several months, and I think I was sick and losing a little bit of weight without really noticing it.
Yeah.
So I think when I went into the hospital, I was about 165 pounds.
Okay.
Lost all of that in a matter of about 2 weeks. They had me on in an attempt for me to try and save my colon, because I didn't want emergency surgery, because emergency surgery is much worse than actually having like a scheduled surgery. I wanted to save it, so they're like, well, we can give this a shot, which is basically you lay there and we put you in starvation mode for a while. I went I think the longest I went was about 15 or 16 days with not even a sip of water. So I lost a lot,
that's
of
straight
weight.
survivor shit, man.
Yeah, I mean, if you saw pictures of me that I did take when I was in the hospital, it'd make you throw
Well,
up.
we saw you when we came to visit you.
Well, that's true. I wasn't far off then, but I left the hospital at 100 pounds. I think if I remember correctly, one time when they weighed me after surgery, I was like 96 pounds.
I mean, that's. Can I say that's
Skeleton.
tiny?
That's
Well, you say if you
tiny. That's like a dead
Okay.
person.
yeah. So if you take 96 pounds at 5'11", I mean that's
That's bad.
That's like. Is that the word emaciated?
emaciated. Yeah, that's very emaciated.
I don't know. I don't actually know. But
Isn't that like mean really
Emaciated.
skinny?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that's
Okay.
kind of like some of those photos you see from the Holocaust. And
Oh,
stuff.
and that's
Stuff
the
like
thing
that.
is like when the one time, because I didn't really there's a mirror in my hospital rooms that I had, but I was never like looking in them. But the first time that I was at home and I first time that I took a shower and like looked in the mirror, that's exactly what I looked like. My thighs were just basically like the bone and went up to like a knee.
Yeah.
And my hips just like stuck way out, and it was pretty disgusting.
Yeah.
And to put it in perspective for people, if you've never been there, the top of your head can get skinny. I remember feeling the top of my head, and it felt like extremely bony. It was very, very weird.
So there's fat on your head.
Yeah. So, and I
or
lost it.
muscle or whatever it is. Yeah.
Yeah, and I lost it. So, so went through all that, and I got out of the hospital April 1st, and I've been told both by my surgeon and my GI specialist that I was not only probably one of the sickest patients I've ever had, I'm without a doubt probably the fastest.
Weight gainer.
Yeah, like
Recovery.
just everything, recovery in general, like my blood labs and like my incision healing, and especially my weight. I left the hospital at 100 pounds on April 1st. Today I was 153.
Dang.
So I've been gaining about 5 pounds a week since I got out, which is very fast.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
can totally tell a difference even in
Oh, yeah,
like a month when
100%,
we've
yeah.
Oh,
seen
it
you,
just,
and then
like-
before that, obviously.
Like my strength, like I'm no joke. When I was the first time, they had me, like I was taking like Snapchats and stuff of myself, like working out, like the first week out of the hospital, and everybody's like, you shouldn't be doing that, you shouldn't be doing that. They were so worried about how I had zero fat on my body and almost zero muscle that they brought me like hospital tiny resistance bands like 2 days after my surgery. They're like, you
Start
every
here.
2
Gotta start
hours
building.
you got to start building. This is like, you don't know it, but this is really bad. Like you have to get something on your body. So they wanted me working out, and like that first week out of the hospital, I was laying on the couch doing chest exercises because I've always worked out, like super like into working out all the time. And I was laying on the couch doing dumbbell bench with little green 2-pound dumbbells and was like shaking, pushing them up. And fast forward to today, I'm already like with all my exercises that I do every week, I'm adding like 5-10 pounds every single week to what I'm doing. Like I'm not back to the same strength that I had before, but I'm well on my
On your
way.
way,
I
yeah.
would say by like probably the end of July, I'll be back to doing weights that I was doing before I even got sick. So
Okay, but so you waited the 15 days so then you could get scheduled, like to not have the emergency surgery. So if we're rewinding, because we were talking about Survivor.
Sure.
Like you didn't eat, drink for 15 days to hopefully cure your colon.
Yeah. So
That was
what
like part of the deal.
The deal was at that time is I had what's called toxic megacolon.
Okay.
It's basically where your colon stops working and all the gases and everything from what you're eating build up inside of it, and it basically turns into a giant balloon.
Oh.
And it's like it got so big that it was pushing on the back of my ribs. My ribs hurt. And this was one of my like 2-week stints out of the hospital. And because I was in the hospital for all of like a month, but it was in three different stints. Like the first time, like they got me under control, figured out what I had. Okay, we're going to start him on these infusions. He can go home. Go home. Shit got even worse. Had to go back. Get like stuff figured out and get once you get something figured out, they would let me go home, but then it would just get way worse again.
Okay. Yeah.
So, but what they were doing was in an effort to save the colon was, okay, well, if he's not eating or drinking anything, then it can't keep expanding, because what they were worried about was it like literally exploding inside my body at any given point. Like at the time that I was at the emergency room and got checked in, they're like, it could go
Right now.
and kill you. And I was like, but they're like, if we do emergency surgery, there's a big risk of something bad happening because it's so fragile. And then you would have to have like an ostomy bag the rest of your life. I was like, well, I'm not doing that. So I was like, no, I'm not doing the emergency surgery. Let's try this route. And we did. It eventually went down, but it was basically like the colon was like basically dead at that point.
Okay. No
So
recovery.
So I went home, and what they do is like once it went down, they're like, okay, well, they'll start with like liquids, and then like they'll give you like popsicles and stuff like that, and as long as you can like digest it, you're fine. So I was able to digest stuff after it went down, but once I went home and I started like actually eating real food,
It didn't work.
it didn't work, and I ended up in some of the worst pain I've ever been in my life. Back to the hospital we go, and they're like, okay, well, we're going to go in. What had actually happened too, a lot of the pain is that part of my small intestine had got tied in a knot it somehow.
Oh my gosh.
So they're like, we're gonna. Oh, I am giving the most Cliff Notes version of this story. Like there's so many sub stories within this deal that's just insane. But my surgeon's like, I'm gonna go in and see if I can undo that knot. He's like, I can. He's like, but if I see that the colon looks bad, he's like, I'm taking it. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. Mm-hmm. And I put up a fight about that too, but ultimately I lost that fight. And woke up after about a 6-hour surgery. She was gone. He told me that when he pulled it out, it was the consistency of wet toilet paper. He's like, it was just completely dead. Mm-hmm. But not completely dead, because I still have like 20% of it, which is good, because then I can do reversal surgery here soon. And
so that doesn't grow back? Is that a weird question? Okay,
no,
that's not one of the, like, isn't the liver the only organ that can like keep growing?
I'm
like
not sure.
part
I'm
of
not
it
sure, but I think it's one of those that can do it. But
okay.
yeah, no, once your colon's gone, it's
gone. Yeah.
Yep. So, but it doesn't do that much anyways. So that's why that you can take it out and live a perfectly normal life.
So another surgery in like a year, like they want you to get back to your 175. Like you have these markers that you have to get to.
Yeah. So they, their goal for me was just to get back to normal weight and stuff this year.
Oh, gall.
They wanted me to be, I think they wanted me to get to 160 pounds sometime this year. I'll do that by the end of the month. So way, way ahead of schedule there. And they were thinking, once I did the initial surgeries, afterwards they were like my surgeon's like, I set you up for reversal surgery and get put back together, but it's like, I don't know. He's like, might not happen. And that was pretty devastating. Had my 4-week out of the hospital checkup with him and my GI specialist, and they were both like so blown away by how much I had progressed in just 4 weeks that they're like, all right, well, this might be something we can actually do then. Let's see how things go. And I just had my latest meeting with my GI last week, and she's like, probably do something this fall.
Good.
Was she like,
okay.
She's like, oh, you look so big. You look so masculine. What's your bench press at?
You're not tiny anymore.
Oh, my God. I'm never going to.
Yeah, so then I actually, on Friday, I meet with my surgeon, and we'll see what he says. Because the thing I learned in the hospital, you could have the whole hospital saying one thing, but if your surgeon says something else, that's the way it goes. He calls all the shots. No ifs, ands, or buts about that. So we'll see what he says, but my GI said that she thinks that he'll probably say like October or something.
Well, good luck.
So while laying there and recovering and doing all the things, your brain finally is going to business stuff and morphing into different ideas. And like you said, you went down rabbit holes with trying to figure out, at that time, did you think you wanted to rename? Or you were just like interested in maybe shifting gears with what you were doing?
I knew I wanted to shift gears, but I didn't know that I necessarily was like, let's completely rebrand and redo it. I think I just kind of got sucked down a rabbit hole on my phone while I was laying there in the hospital, and I was like,
well, what else are you going to do?
Yeah, let's do it. You know what I mean? So
you listen to like a brand maker's podcast or something?
And then, also I think I'd briefly mentioned before that me and another videographer friend of mine, we were thinking about like actually joining forces and creating a production team, production business of our own together. We ultimately decided against that, and I think I kind of had that in my head a little bit too, to where I was like, screw it, I'll do that for myself. Mm-hmm. And I think it's going to be a good move. My plan is that I want to be like posting my own content like all the time. So I'm not really even going to probably like formally or officially like announce that I'm changing it until probably like August or September sometime.
Just so you have content or what?
Next week on the Common Folk podcast when this comes out.
Well, that too. Now the whole nation's going to know.
It's a teaser. Yeah.
Just because you want to build up content, or you're just not ready for that yet? Yeah, I just want to
build up content. So when I do like, launch the social media and like website and stuff like that, like I'm able to like, I've got a backlog of stuff that I can just constantly post and stay super consistent, rather than like with CJP, like I was posting like once a month.
Yeah.
I was even like some of the really cool stuff that I was doing that I liked a lot, like I would never even like post it. I need to be doing more of that.
Yeah.
I
you
mean,
do.
we say
There's
that
always-
too. We need to
Yeah.
post a lot
how
more on
much do you
Farm
wanna
Focus,
do?
but
Yeah.
on all this stuff.
One of the things that I thought was interesting that you guys were saying earlier was you were talking about CJP before, and then you went through this illness, and literally, I mean, you were on death's door,
Yeah,
right? I mean,
big time.
you probably shouldn't be sitting here right now. And you came to some kind of realization that you admitted to yourself that you weren't giving it everything you could be giving it.
Yeah,
And you started talking about that,
Yeah.
and I interrupted you guys and brought it back to tell the story of the illness. So elaborate on that a little bit.
yeah, I just like in life in general, I just think you need, not that you need to like almost die and lay in a hospital bed for a month wondering what's going to happen to you, but I think every now and then you just need some good old-fashioned kicks in the ass, and it'll change you and change how you think about things and kind of wise up to what you need to do for yourself. And that was, I went through some of that with losing my mom,
Yeah.
and taking care of her, and picking her up off the couch to take her to the bathroom. Well, ultimately, 4 years later, that ended up being me. And this time was like really figure out what's important to you. And I mean, I'm like super, a lot of it revolves around like the business and like the video stuff, because that's what I'm like ultimately like the most passionate about. That's what I think about all day long, is just creating and stuff.
Yeah.
So, so I mean, it was just, it's a great kick in the ass to just kind of be like, okay, well, what's really important? And beforehand, like, I was still like partying a little bit, like getting drunk and doing shit that I didn't really even want to do. And now it's like so clear to me. It's like, I have no fucking interest in that at all. You know what I mean? Not that like, there's nothing wrong with like sitting around and drinking, but like getting drunk and feeling like shit and just missing out on things that you should be doing. And
taking a day and a half to recover from that, that one night. There's one thing, a question that you asked in the first time we had him out, and it was about, hiring somebody or getting a sidekick, to film you doing your thing, and, or just an employee in general. And you're like, I don't know, bro. I like to party hard. I go hard. I travel. Then you talked about turning 30 there. It was like, oh, man, you're tying some things together there.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Perspective shift.
The
Like
perspective
life,
shifts.
life experience. I mean,
Shifts.
you just went through, oh my God, you're making me teary when you're talking about it. Even like, it makes me sad. Seeing you was so fun.
It's,
Like,
I mean, it's some of the, definitely the most physical and mental pain that I've ever, kind of gone through in my life.
yeah.
But I'm not mad about it. And to be honest with you, when I think about it and I look back on it, I don't think I would do it any different because of what I've gained afterwards and the perspective shift and just like kind of getting wise to what I really want to do and what's important to me. I'm kind of in a way happy that it even happened, because if it hadn't, I don't think I would be doing the projects that I'm doing. I don't think I would be going the route that I'm going with everything.
Yeah.
So with life in general. So
And maybe you felt, I don't know, I don't want to speak for you, but maybe you felt since you were young, and single, like you needed to do those things. Now you're like wise, not like 2 years older, but you've gone through this and you're like, fuck it. I'm going to do what I want to do, what satisfies me. It's not for everybody else. It's what's good for me. I don't know. That
Also,
kinda,
I think that perspective
what I'm
probably
hearing.
came in of like, you're invincible before, like,
Yeah, you
Yeah.
were swimming with sharks, bro.
yeah.
Those are awesome videos, by the way.
I'm still doing that one. I mean, okay, so I said that 30 started off pretty shitty, and it's been a cluster.
Is it going to end good?
I did spend my 30th birthday in the Virgin Islands.
Okay.
Diving shark-infested shipwrecks. So if that makes
Yeah. There we go.
you feel a little bit better. It started out good. It's been
But I think it gives you that change of perspective where, prior to young dude, we've all been there, just balls to the wall all the time.
Yeah.
And then you got a wake-up call that not very many people get, and you're just like, okay, now it's more about meaning.
It's more like kind of my perspective. You're growing, and you're like writing this novel, and that was just a chapter.
Yeah.
Corey Jones
Yeah.
Productions was a chapter. I thought it was a catchy name, that first podcast.
Yeah.
How Corey became CB.
And the design was cool.
The
and all
design was
stuff
very
like that.
cool. Yeah. And you got to go through it if you want to learn. Like, I hate professors and teachers that didn't actually do it. You know, like, don't tell me about sales if you didn't spend 10 years in the sales position and grinded
Yeah.
and you got your ass kicked and all those things. Like, I want to learn from the people that did it.
I'll tell you one of the other things too that I learned that I didn't know I was going to learn in starting a business is that at least 9 out of 10 people, I'm guessing right now, but it's got to be at least that. The way you start your business and how you start it and how you foresee it happening, it's not going to be that in a few
No.
years.
Right.
Not at all.
And the people that are successful with it are the ones that are able to recognize when that time comes.
Yeah.
That, okay, this isn't necessarily working or isn't happening the way I originally saw. Or
Close that chapter, start
Yep,
writing a new one.
100%. Or there's a
Or
new
is that when you say that
opportunity.
you bend or you're shifting?
Yeah,
or
there's a new opportunity here that I need to weigh. That okay, I might need to go this direction now a little bit with this, but still stay true to who I am, but continue to build this in this way.
Yeah.
This wasn't the way that I originally saw it, but now I see this is something.
You can't be stubborn about it. You got to just kind of the ebbs and flows. You gotta just gotta go with it. Like, if you would have told me, even when we did the podcast last time, if you would have said that like Corey Jones Productions would be no more and you'd actually be called Cake 2 years from now, I'd be like, what the fuck? I'd be like, what? That's the dumbest thing ever. But now, like, it makes sense, and you gotta change. You're always gonna have to change a little bit here and there as you go with your businesses.
Yep.
And if you're too stubborn and stuck in your ways and no, this is how it needs to be done, well, you're probably going to fail.
Agreed.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So mine, it's a minor shift. It's just a rebranding, really, but I
Yeah.
felt it was necessary, so that's the route that I went.
But it's rebranding, but it's, to me, is what's huge is that you're choosing more of what you want to do. Again,
Yeah.
you could have your backup could be going back to do clubs. God
Yeah.
forbid money's tight. Go do weddings. Anybody could use you, but right now you're going to choose what satisfies and fulfills you.
yeah,
How cool is that?
Definitely, because with CJP, it was definitely like in the beginning, and for the most part, I think for the most part of it was, taking basically what business I could get at
Yeah,
the time. And
right.
now that I'm kind of past that point and I can kind of pick what I really want to specialize in, let's just start over,
Yep.
regroup here, and just definitely do more of what I want to do, because in a creative space like with what I'm doing, you need to create for yourself first, and then everything else will kind of fall in line. If you're just
Like that.
if you're creating for other people, you're not going to love. And that's what I was doing for a long time, was like I was purely just creating and doing video content for other people, and I started to kind of fall out of love with it because I wasn't creating for myself. And I think that's kind of where I was at towards the end of last year, was like I was already in the mindset of like I need to get back to creating for myself. Kind of do my style and what I want to do, and take my style and what I like to do and plugging in the client into that.
Which is so interesting as you're saying that. It just seems like it could come off as a little selfish, but you have to do that. Like
Yeah.
you're in that, I don't know, that niche or that.
I mean, that's the
That's-
reason
that's
why
so
your company
professional.
exists.
Exactly.
Because you have that that look, that feel, that personality of the things that you do. So why try to be anybody else?
Yeah.
It's not going to be for every company.
Yeah,
It's not
right.
going to be for most companies.
And it's
Well,
not going to
and
be
that's-
cake then
And that's like,
for somebody, It really isn't.
that's kind of, I got into the flow of creating purely for other people. When I was doing that, I was kind of losing my way on like creativity. Like the stuff I was making, I was watching it back and I'm like, this sucks. But if I start going back to like creating how I would create that video for myself, if it was for me, making it for them, I've kind of got really like excited about it again and fallen
Yeah.
back in love with
Yeah.
the whole
But
the
is
whole
that,
thing. So
Is that hard to do though? Because I would think with the, like you're saying, you want to make it easy for people. There are some people coming to you saying, I want it done like this. Or is that very rare in what you do? Like someone is like, hey, I want you to not like film like this angle, but gives you more instruction.
yeah, I mean, you do. I don't run into a whole lot of it anymore. A lot of what I get nowadays is like, I seen your stuff, I like it, I want it.
Good. Okay.
So that makes it very easy for me to just have, creative control, and that's something I get too. Like, you have full creative control, you can do whatever you want. I'm like, thank you. So, stay out of the way.
Yeah.
But as before, a lot of what I was getting was like, see this, can you make this like this? And it's like that's actually not a bad thing, because I would also ask, I still ask, like, is there any examples you can give me of stuff that you like? If they come to me and they're not like, I like your stuff, I want it for myself too, I'll ask for examples, and that's pretty easy. But when you have clients that are like, I don't know what I want,
that's the worst.
Those are usually going to be the clients that are a complete pain in the ass.
You say that with design work.
Yeah.
Like graphics
Yeah.
even. It's
Yeah,
like
it's the same idea.
I'm not picky, and then you design things and they're like, oh, I hate all of them. You're like,
we have
are you freaking kidding me?
We have a full-on graphic design department, and I don't know
It's like-
if Sarah listens to the podcast or not, but Sarah heads up our graphic design department, and I know that is her number one issue, is that people come to the table and they tell us, hey, we want you to create something for us, and then we try to. They don't have any input. We try to, and we do it our way,
And it's so good.
and we love it.
Yeah.
And then they're like, oh, I don't really know. And then you're like, gosh, dang it, man. Why didn't you tell me about something before? And
That's so funny.
Yeah.
but it's how those things
true.
work. I mean, it's
Yeah.
it's art, dude. I mean, all this stuff is art.
I had a big old poster made, like a big old 6 foot by 3 foot, for our sports betting show and for the live event we did. And I was very specific on what I wanted, where I wanted it, how it looked, and put this here, put that there. And I read it back because I didn't want to have any typos or anything or look like a dipshit. And I thought, man, I'm kind of coming off as really picky and really, I don't know, like Mr. McGee or something. And the feedback I got was, I wish every order was like yours.
Gave you, all that.
Because I just detailed every little thing, and it took a lot of like the guesswork and the back and forth out of it. And
And I kind of feel like that's two totally different things. What you're talking about, like the company that you worked with was like, give me all the things you want, I'll do that. And then kind of what I'm hearing from you, Corey, is, okay, we know what you want to shoot. Let me run with it.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily want to know the way that you want it. I want to do it the way that I want to do it because I know it's going to be cool.
Yeah.
And hopefully you're going to love this.
and let me do it. Let him do it.
Yeah.
You're
Yeah.
asking him to
Yeah.
work. Let him work.
Yeah.
And I mean, I've gotten to a point now where the product that I do make, people usually are pretty
Sure.
Oh my
pretty
gosh,
jacked up about it.
it's so good. Yeah.
So I don't really I don't run very much. I'm probably jinxing myself here, but I don't run into very much like the video, but we have some thoughts. And it's like, we've got some revisions. And when you get, like, as a video creator, can we change the song? That's like the worst thing you could ever possibly hear, because like that's changing the entire video.
Oh,
And
I
the
didn't
flow
think
of
about
it.
that.
Because first thing I do, like, I always try to have the music picked out beforehand.
Oh.
So I pick a song that I like, that I think will go with the theme, and then I'll listen to the song and think like, okay, show footsteps coming down the stairs right here at this part, and then boom, it goes to this, and then that's how I do it. And I will go in my editing software, I plug the song in first, and then M on my keyboard is a marker. I'll play through the song and I'll make a
Marks.
mark at every like beat or transition point that I want, and then I'll go in and I'll plug in the clips according to that. So when somebody says, can we change the song?
You're like, oh,
That's a whole new video.
It's a completely new creation.
I want to be like, yes, I can do that, but it's not going to be better. It's actually going to be probably worse.
and I'm going to charge you double. How about that?
and
Because
you're
it's
getting-
2 videos.
Yeah, like you get
that.
free revisions, or one free revision, but when it's can we change the song? That's not free.
And then
because that's the whole thing.
you do it, and then they hear it, and then they're like,
Nah.
actually, the original one was better.
Oh my god.
It makes
You know,
you have
you
like
owe me triple now.
like so you're following a guy and the door opens and it's right on that downbeat.
Yep.
I know exactly what you're saying. and then you put a new song in it, just put the song in and don't change any of the video timing. Like, it
Just
wouldn't even
leave
make
it.
sense.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, it wouldn't go together at all. Be no
it'd be
flow.
terrible.
So,
Man, yeah.
I love it.
A lot of crazy
Getting
things,
in the
man.
weeds there.
Yeah,
So-
I think I'm either decent at making dramatic stories and telling them, or I just have something crazy to share every time I'm on here.
No, you're so creative, though. Just even saying that, my mind does not work like that. Ooh, I'm going to plug in a song. And then, oh, I'm thinking footsteps. I'm thinking that, like, I could never in a million years. So thank God for people like you
Well, it's got
that
to
are creative.
You got to do it that way because, like, I still wind up on shoots where I don't do any pre-production, and that sucks. Where you're just like run and gun the whole day, just like trying to catch cool stuff.
Okay.
And then you got to go in and put music to the clips rather than the other
Yeah.
way around, and then
Yeah.
that's
Right.
Yeah.
it. Always works out,
Yeah.
but it could have been better.
But
Yeah.
you do, yeah. You
Yeah.
do
If
great
you have
work.
a plan, it might come together better. Whoa. Weird.
Yeah, funny how that works.
Well, I'm glad you're looking healthy and big.
And masculine and muscular and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Saving
I've
that one up.
I've only got, as of right now, I guess 17 pounds to go to get
Yeah.
back to where I
Alright.
was. So,
So
it's
you
good to
just
see you.
lift and work out at home or just
yep.
work out?
And
walk
eat
in and-
lots of food, and that's kind of become
Protein.
harder now that I don't have a coming out of starvation mode appetite.
Yeah.
Now I'm back to normal appetite, so I gotta have to like
Shoving it in.
gorge myself
Yep.
while I'm eating. So
One
but-
day you'll be like, oh, I wish I could go back to, not having to
yeah,
watch what I'm eating.
yeah. No, if I want for a snack, if I want a couple pieces of pizza or some donuts or something, they're going down. I'm eating them.
Right on.
Anything and everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. Well, we're glad you're here. We appreciate you coming back. It's kind of crazy. I didn't realize that in the beginning until you said that. It's been over 2 years.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's wild.
Yep. I was way off on that one.
Well,
Time.
we just always talk about how we've been doing this for 2 years, and I remember
Yeah.
him being the first, and it just seems crazy.
Well,
Time flies.
You guys were talking about how 80% of businesses fail within the first year. It's something like 95% of podcasts don't get past the third episode.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What is it?
So
it's
it's pretty
something
cool.
like not what percent is it? Doesn't get past like the third episode. It's like
Yeah.
98% or
Yeah.
something like
What?
that. So you're in like
It
Oh
is.
my gosh.
like you guys are literally in the
killing it.
top like couple percent.
We really are. We're like
That's
within
awesome.
the top 5%.
That's because we
Yeah.
keep talking to folks like you, man.
There it
Yeah.
is.
Here we are, and I would have
Gotta
never,
have a
I would have
story.
never thought that we would have been doing this for so long that we could have had like a follow-up story that's almost like a completely different thing.
So true.
a couple years later. So it's pretty cool, man.
Yeah.
But
Oh,
we
it's good
definitely
to see it.
appreciate you being here. And
Yeah.
before we close out, I want to remind folks that if they go to the Farm Focused website or the Stock and Rod website,
Yeah.
Common Folk 20, isn't that what we did?
Is it 20% off?
Common Folk
Okay.
20.
All right. All right.
Is the code.
Yeah.
Or no, it was just Common Folk. Common Folk is
Oh,
the
okay.
code.
Oh,
I don't
okay.
remember.
But you get 20 off.
Yeah.
So just type in Common Folk at checkout. You get 20% off. We've got the Watson gloves on there.
Yep.
We love working with those folks.
Yeah. No, they're cool.
And then all of the other items, man. All the shirts, all the hats, all the gear. 20% off. So check it out.
Give me some of that cake. Give me some of that
Yay.
cake.
We need to
swag.
It's going to be coming out. It's
I need
going
to
to be
get
coming
Corey a
out.
shirt. Did we ever give you a shirt on the first one?
Common Folk
I don't think
Podcast
we were
shirt.
doing that.
I don't think so.
Well, he knows
Well-
the website. He knows where
if
to go.
I'm the
no.
repeat offender, I need a common folk
That's
podcast.
100%.
We'll get
That's
you
all
one.
right.
We'll get you one.
All right. Cool, man. Well, we appreciate it. Anything else?
Nah.
I think that's
you guys
it.
good?
Yep.
All right. We're going to close out.
Peace.
All right.
We'll see you, buddy.
All right.
Later.